Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Eliza stared at her phone like it was a death sentence. The screen lit up her pale face while her eyes scanned Marcus's message for the 10th time. Tomorrow, no excuses, or I tell everything to your husband. Her stomach churned. She had been living with this fear for weeks, since Marcus, the man she cheated on Jonathan with, started extorting her. At first, she thought the affair was just a moment of weakness that she could bury in the past, something no one would ever find out about. But Marcus didn't let her forget. He first approached her with gentle words. Eliza, I don't want to cause you any trouble, but I need a little financial help. It seemed harmless at the time. She hesitated, but gave in. The guilt already crushed her, and if some dollars could keep her secret safe, so be it. Only that wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Marcus realized he had power over her. Soon, the messages became more demanding, the amounts bigger, and Eliza understood that no matter how much she paid, he'd never be satisfied. Now he wanted even more money and started sending direct threats. Jonathan is a good guy, right? It would be a shame if he found out the worst possible way. The terror of losing her marriage and being publicly humiliated consumed Eliza. Every day was a struggle to hide her anxiety, pretending everything was normal, but inside she was falling apart. Meeting Marcus to hand over the money was torture. Eliza made up excuses for Jonathan, saying she had commitments or needed some alone time. One night, she said she was going to see a friend, another time, pretended to visit her sister. In reality, she drove to remote places where Marcus waited for her. He always greeted her with the same satisfied smile, the look of someone who enjoyed watching her unravel. The last time they met was in a poorly lit parking lot. Eliza got out of the car holding an envelope with trembling hands. Marcus took the money and counted it slowly, savoring each bill as if testing his patience. This will do for now, he said, folding the envelope and putting it in his coat pocket. But I think we'll have to meet again soon. Eliza felt a bitter taste in her mouth. She wanted to scream, say she couldn't take it anymore, but she was trapped. If she said no, she'd lose everything. If she kept giving in, she'd never find peace. That night, when she got home, Jonathan welcomed her with a warm look, holding a glass of wine and smiling. I thought you might want to relax a bit. Eliza's heart tightened. How could he still be so kind to her? How could he look at her with that same loving gaze, unaware of the betrayal she was hiding? Thank you, she murmured, taking the glass, but her hand trembled. Jonathan noticed. You okay? She forced a smile. Just a little tired. He looked at her for a second longer than usual, but didn't push. Eliza took a deep breath and took a sip of wine, trying to push the thoughts away. But deep down, she knew she was living in a house of cards ready to collapse. And when it did, there'd be no way to rebuild it. Eliza didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring into the dark, listening to Jonathan's steady breathing beside her. Every time he moved, her heart raced, afraid he'd wake up and realize what was going on inside her. But he didn't wake up. He stayed there, peaceful, unaware that his wife was hiding a devastating secret. She wanted to cry, scream, disappear, but she knew none of it would solve anything. Marcus wouldn't stop. No matter how much money she gave, he'd always come back for more. It was a game without an end. She was stuck, with no escape, and the only way out was through hell. When the first rays of sunlight came through the window, Eliza made a decision. Her chest felt heavy, her hands were cold, but there was no choice left. If she kept running, Marcus would destroy her piece by piece. If she wanted a chance at freedom, she'd have to face the worst pain of all. She looked at Jonathan, still sleeping. She knew that the moment he heard the truth, everything would change. The way he looked at her, touched her, smiled without reservations, it could all vanish in an instant. But there was nowhere else to run. She waited for him to wake naturally. Jonathan opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the morning light. He smiled, but the look on Eliza's face made the smile disappear instantly. "What is it?" His voice was still hoarse from sleep, but full of genuine concern. Eliza tried to speak, but her throat was tight. She swallowed hard and took a deep breath, trying to find the strength to say words that felt like poison. "I need to tell you something." Jonathan sat up in bed, frowning. He didn't ask anything, just waited. Then, she told everything. Each word felt like a knife in her own chest. She told him she made a mistake, gave in to temptation, and betrayed his trust. That she thought she could bury the past and move forward, but Marcus wouldn't let her. She told him about the threats, the money, the fear of losing everything. Jonathan didn't interrupt her. He just listened, his face expressionless. When Eliza finished, silence filled the room. A brutal, suffocating silence. "He's blackmailing you?" Jonathan's voice finally broke the quiet. And there was no anger in it, just a cutting coldness. Eliza nodded, her eyes burning with tears. "Why didn't you tell me before?" She tried to answer, but the words died in her throat. How could she explain? How could she say that the fear of losing him was what stopped her from telling? That ironically, by trying to protect him, she ended up exactly where she feared most, on the brink of ruin. Jonathan remained silent for a long time. Eliza wished he would say something, anything, that he would yell, fight, ask what she was thinking. But he simply got up, picked up his phone from the nightstand, and started scrolling. "What are you doing?" Her voice was weak. "Send me everything. Messages, receipts. I want to see it all." Eliza's heart pounded. Jonathan didn't lose it, didn't shout, he was cold, calculating. That was worse than any explosion of rage. With trembling hands, she grabbed her phone and forwarded everything to him. Jonathan read every message from Marcus with a terrifying calm. When he was done, he locked the screen and looked at her. "We're ending this." A shiver ran through Eliza. "What? You've given him too much money already. This ends now." Jonathan left the room without saying anything else. Eliza stood there, feeling her world crumble. She knew the storm was coming and there was no way to escape it. Eliza walked down the stairs with a pounding heart. Every step felt unstable, like she was heading toward an unknown abyss. Jonathan was in the living room, back to her, still holding his phone. His silence was worse than any fight. She approached slowly, taken by uncertainty. "Jonathan, what are you going to do?" He turned around, his eyes icy cold. There was tension in his posture, complete control of his emotions, but Eliza knew he was furious inside. "We're ending this," he said, raising his phone to show Marcus's messages. "He thinks he can blackmail you for the rest of your life, take our money, destroy our marriage, and get away with it." His voice sharpened with every word. It wasn't a betrayed man speaking, it was someone who had already made his decision. "I can't deal with this alone anymore," Eliza confessed in a near whisper. Jonathan nodded slowly, as if he was waiting for that confession. "Then let me handle it." She didn't have the courage to ask what he meant by that. Jonathan spent the day making calls. Eliza watched from afar, scared to interfere. He spoke with someone, took notes, analyzed everything with a calm that made her even more nervous. When it got dark, he called her. "Tomorrow, you'll set up a meeting with him." Eliza's stomach twisted. "What? He wants money, right? Then we'll give him what he wants." There was something in Jonathan's tone that bothered her. He didn't sound like someone about to give in, he sounded like someone about to attack. Eliza hesitated, but she knew there was no way out. She picked up her phone and typed the message with trembling fingers. "Marcus, I have the money you asked for. Tomorrow night, same place." He replied quickly, "Great. Don't make me wait." She turned off the screen, feeling like she could barely breathe. Jonathan took an envelope from the drawer and threw it on the table. "Tomorrow you give him this." Eliza opened the envelope. It was full of money. She looked at Jonathan, surprised. "I already called the police. As soon as he takes this money, it's over." She fell silent. He had thought of everything. But for some reason, that didn't make her feel safer. The next day was a torment. Eliza couldn't focus on anything. Every minute brought her closer to that meeting. Marcus didn't know what awaited him, and she tried to convince herself it was the only way out. When night arrived, Eliza drove to the parking lot where they always met. Her hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. She parked, turned off the engine, and sat there, trying to ignore the panic growing in her chest. Marcus arrived a few minutes later. He stepped out of his car like a king collecting taxes. There was arrogance in his walk, a cynical smile on his lips. Eliza felt disgust. "Good girl," he said, extending his hand. "Now give me what I want." She swallowed hard and handed him the envelope. Marcus opened it, checked the bills, and let out a satisfied laugh. "See? When you cooperate, things go smoothly." But before he could put the money away, a car screeched to a stop behind him. Doors opened. Authoritative voices echoed through the parking lot, "Hands up." Marcus's smile vanished instantly. "What?" He looked at Eliza, and in that moment, she saw terror in his eyes for the first time. He was in her place. Marcus tried to run, but was knocked down in seconds. They cuffed his wrists, and all he could do was shout insults as they led him away. Eliza didn't move. She just watched, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Jonathan approached. "It's over." But she knew it was just the beginning. Her legs felt weak as she watched Marcus being placed in the police car. The red and blue lights reflected in the windows like a silent warning that her life would never be the same. She heard the sound of the door closing, taking away the threat of blackmail. Still, she didn't feel relieved. She expected that with Marcus in prison, everything would be solved, the weight on her chest would disappear, and she could breathe and feel free. But it didn't happen. In fact, it was the opposite. There was a cold silence between her and Jonathan, so sharp it was almost unbearable. He didn't look at her, didn't celebrate, didn't seem even slightly satisfied. He just maintained that distant, impassive expression, as if the whole operation had merely been a task to complete. Eliza opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Jonathan, on the other hand, seemed to have already decided there was nothing more to say. Without waiting for her, he turned and walked back to the car. Eliza followed, unsure of what to do. He opened the door, and she grabbed his arm. "Jonathan." He paused for a moment, still not looking at her. Then, he let out a long sigh and finally turned. There was something in his eyes she couldn't fully identify. Not anger. Not disgust. Something worse, indifference. "You're free now, Eliza. You don't have to worry about Marcus anymore." The way he said that made her stomach twist. It wasn't just a statement that Marcus was arrested. It was a warning. She felt a lump in her throat. "What do you mean by that?" Jonathan rubbed his face as if searching for patience. When he spoke again, his voice was low and emotionless. "I did what needed to be done. The rest is up to you." "Up to me?" She furrowed her brow, confused. "I don't understand." He looked directly into her eyes, and this time there was something broken there. "Do you really think this was just about Marcus?" It was like something inside her shattered. Because deep down, she already knew the answer. But she didn't want to admit it. Eliza had always feared losing Jonathan because of the blackmail, the public shame, the scandal. But now she realized the real danger had never been Marcus. The real danger was what would come after, when everything was over. When there was no more external villain to blame. Now that there was no more blackmail, no more threats. Just the harsh reality of her own mistakes. Jonathan stayed silent for a moment, as if waiting for her to say something. But Eliza couldn't speak. He got into the car, closed the door, and started the engine. She took a step back, feeling an awful emptiness invade her. Jonathan rolled down the window and looked at her one last time. "Don't wait up for me." Then he was gone. She stood there, watching the taillights disappear into the night, realizing that even with Marcus in prison and everything seeming resolved, she had just lost something much greater. Something she might never recover. Eliza stayed awake all night. The clock next to the bed marked 3 a.m. Then 4 a.m. Then 5 a.m. The silence of the house felt louder than ever. She didn't hear footsteps in the hallway, nor the sound of Jonathan's keys at the door. Just an overwhelming emptiness. She sat up in bed, hugging her knees, breathing in short, uneven gasps. With each passing minute, the truth became clearer: Jonathan wasn't coming back. For the first time, Eliza felt like the house was foreign. Like it no longer belonged to her. Every piece of furniture, every photo on the wall, every memory scattered throughout the rooms, it all felt like it was about to collapse. The weight of her betrayal had never been so suffocating. For weeks, she lived in fear of being exposed. Then in fear of Marcus destroying her life. Now the fear was different, a silent fear of having already lost everything. She got out of bed, walking barefoot through the dark house. She ran her hand along the dining table, the back of the chair where Jonathan used to sit. She looked at the couch where they had watched countless movies together, laughing and chatting about nonsense. Now it all felt like another world. Morning came. Sunlight filtered through the curtains of the living room, and she finally heard a noise at the door. Her heart raced. "Jonathan?" She ran to the door, paused for a second to take a deep breath, and opened it. But the look on his face was like a punch to the stomach. There was no anger, no hatred, but also no love. Just an empty stare. Jonathan walked in without saying anything, passed by her, and went straight to the bedroom. Eliza followed, trying to control the panic twisting inside her. He opened the closet and began pulling out clothes, carefully folding them and placing them in the suitcase. Eliza could barely breathe. "What are you doing?" Jonathan continued folding a shirt, not looking at her. "What do you think?" "Jonathan, no." She tried to grab his arm, but he pulled away. Not aggressively, but firmly. A shiver ran down her spine. "You can't just leave. We went through this together." He paused for a moment and, finally, looked at her. "Did we really?" The question hung in the air like an open wound. Eliza tried to respond, but nothing came out. Jonathan sighed and continued packing. "I did what needed to be done. Not for you. For me. Because I wasn't going to let a worm like Marcus destroy you." He zipped the suitcase. "But that doesn't mean I can stay with you like nothing happened." That hurt more than anything else he could have said. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "I know I messed up. But I love you, Jonathan. Does that mean nothing?" Jonathan took a deep breath. For a second, she thought he might give in. But then he gave a sad smile. "If it did, I'd be angry right now. I'd be shouting, fighting, trying to save us." He ran his hand through his hair, avoiding her gaze. "But I don't feel anything anymore, Eliza. That was worse than everything." He zipped the suitcase and walked toward the door. Eliza followed, desperate. "Jonathan, please." He stopped, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. "I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I want to continue." And then he left. Eliza stood there, hands trembling, staring at the closed door. For the first time, she realized her true punishment wasn't the public shame. It wasn't Marcus in prison. It was Jonathan's absence. And there was nothing she could do to change that. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.